I'm super referral dependent. I'll be very honest. People talk about us all the time, and that's referral dependency right there. And you're just like, okay, hope people see it, hope they come on, they hope they're talking. And your whole mission, the whole reason for starting this company was to get people away from that. Aaron over at the AC Method. I always talk about the weather. I talk about what's going on in my life, but I'm not going to lie. I want to hop right into it this time around because I'm really excited about this. You guys are going to find out that the gentleman that we're bringing on the podcast actually used me as an example, went all the way through my website, gave me a grade. Do you guys think I did good? Do you think I did poor? You're going to have to listen. But Bill, thanks for coming on the show. How are you doing today?
Doing great. I'm excited to dive right in.
Oh, definitely. So, Bill, you're the founder and the chief marketing strategist over there at Colony Spark. You founded this company in 2018, and obviously you had a niche, obviously you had a need. And from what you and I have been talking about, pretty much every company is good with just referrals, right? They don't need anything else. Just as long as somebody's talking about them, they're good to go, right?
Yep. And now we can just end the podcast early and grab some beers.
Oh man, there's such a niche in the marketing land. It's so funny. As an entrepreneur, you're supposed to know everything. That's how the world sees you. And that's such BS. You're either really good at manufacturing, or you're really good at sales, or you're really good at accounting and reports and analytics. Very rarely does a marketer become an owner unless they're going to stay in that world. Because marketing is that scary, nebulous. It's not black and white. You can't learn it. It's always evolving. How did you get into the marketing world?
Wow. So, about over 15 years now, I've been helping those founder-led companies break through that referral dependency and really started in working with political campaigns from the local to national level where you have that hard deadline. You don't really have second chances and you need to move fast. You need to understand who you're targeting, where they spend time, and how you can inspire them to take action. So, from the political world to startups, to where you're building pipeline from zero on a fixed budget. I'm talking millions of dollars here, to now with more established companies in that $2 to $5 million range, because they, like a lot of your listeners probably here, they're maxed out of their network. So, after working with dozens of these companies in these situations, I've just seen the same patterns over and over. And we're building our business. We're able to really dig into a lot of their challenges and their desired outcomes. So that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today, I hope.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I definitely want to dive into it. Marketing. And I will say this, over the last 6 months, I've really turned my eye to marketing. It's been where I'm spending the majority of my time getting all my companies, trying to get them in the right direction and where they're focusing on and figuring out that ICP. All right, let's go down to some bare basics. What is ICP?
So your ICP is your ideal customer profile. It really is a digging into who's your top customers and why. This is a lot deeper than, hey, we just target our CFOs of manufacturing companies. A real ICP actually understands, especially in B2B, is that there's multiple stakeholders that usually touch the buying process. And that could be a decision maker like a CFO or a COO, but there's also people on the ground that are going to be using your product or service. There's challengers in between, there's influencers. Really understanding that, and then understanding what makes them buy. You can, every 1 month, you can build a list of every manufacturer over 10 million in the US, but there's, not everyone is ready to buy your product right now. So how do you understand what buying signals, what information do they need? And where I focus on a lot now is, since today with AI, a lot of companies, you can really understand your pain points of every industry. But what really, if you're digging into your ICP the right way, you understand the transformation that's happening in their industry and the outcomes that these buyers want when they're buying. So really having a deep understanding of your customer is just step one of any solid marketing plan today in 2026.
Gotcha. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. A year ago, ICP wasn't something I even heard of that analogy. It was like, who are you selling to? That guy. It was very Neanderthal. It wasn't really dialed in. So the help of AI and your explanation right there, truly understanding that. And when you ask any owner, who's your ICP? They're like, oh, I know. Okay, put it down on paper. Oh, and that rubber meets the road. It gets a little bit more difficult. When you first bring a client on, how do you kind of walk them through what their ICP is and like really get it down on paper?
Well, there's a couple things, and a lot of what you said. There's a little misconception. I think we've kind of come from a place where you think of who's my ideal customer, and then a lot of folks will go back to this target persona where it's like, word processor Debbie, or CFO Frank, and it's just like he reads Business Weekly and looks at these different magazines or visits these websites, and it really doesn't get a sense of like who actually the company as a whole. In B2B, with sales cycles 6-12 months, it's just not realistic to say like it's just one person that makes the decision here, especially when you're spending 10, 6, 5, 6, 7 figures on a deal. So when we're starting to work with a client, we want to understand like who are your best customers. And typically when we engage with a new partner, a new company, is they're in that $2 to $5 million range. So they're taking anyone that's coming to them. They're just trying to run their business, feed their families, and make sure their team's paid. Where we want to start digging in is, where's our best customers? Anyone can just sell to anyone, but where are you actually seeing some impact, and where are you kind of understanding where's your best revenue coming from? Where's the quickest sales cycles? Where do you kind of mesh well? And then understanding deeper is, you can talk about subsets inside the industry. Then you can start understanding, why did this company start engaging with us? What did they need to see, or what was something that sparked them to need our help? And when you really start interviewing a new client, you start learning this, and then the real gold starts coming from, when do you start interviewing? You interview your customers. I would interview your best customers and your worst customers. Understand where are some commonalities, where are some things that they've kind of seen value with your service or your product, and where in the case of your worst customers, what are some commonalities there, so what to segment out. And then you start thinking through who are those people inside of the company that need to touch the buying process. And one of the other, I would say probably one of the biggest hurdles that we face is, you typically say like, hey, it's the CFO, in a lot of B2B, it's the CFO who makes the decision. We need to talk to every CFO in these companies that we know we can sell to. But the reality is, like, the CFO is maybe not the first person that's making these decisions. There's someone on the finance team or operations or on the plant floor that is kind of having trouble, and they may be tasked with trying to find some solutions. They're on your website. They're searching for solutions, or whether it's through AI or Google, or talking to their colleagues or attending events. They're trying to find these issues, and then they start bringing it up the chain. And if you're really looking if your strategy is just finding people looking for your solution at the end of the day, you've probably lost about 5 months of building goodwill and trust. A big piece of understanding who your ICP is really understanding those months before they actually determine, like, I need your solution or I need your product, and then being able to kind of create value throughout that process on the channels that they're on, whether it's podcasts or LinkedIn or Reddit, or going to different events and trade shows.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. And then, that segues right into what you and I were talking about right before we started recording here, was referral dependency. And I'm super referral dependent. I'll be very honest. People talk about us all the time. You get on the forums, you see people talking about us, and that's referral dependency right there. And you're just like, okay, hope people see it, hope they come on, they hope they're talking. And your whole mission, the whole reason for starting this company was to get people away from that.
Right. So we know about 70% of B2B companies, they rely primarily on referrals. So, that's great when you're just starting. You have a network, probably have a few years experience in your industry, or you're just just meeting whoever you can meet. And that starts, that can bring that could take you to 1, 2, 3 million. But when you're starting to scale, you can't just rely primarily on who you know and who your new clients will introduce you to. That's not really a system. That's just basically you're an employee, and you can't really get out of that business because the business can't run without you.
Yeah, it really is. And it's tough. And it's super funny at the beginning. You're like, oh, I'm going to hire somebody for do a job that I don't want to do. Mm-hmm. And then I get to do the fun jobs. Then after where those little situations or categories start to rear their ugly head, you got to go back over there. So it's not really a viable solution to hire somebody to handle the crap because you're in it all the time. And so you've got to set up some processes. And so for you, you're sitting there going, okay, referral dependency is a big thing. We got to get away from that. And then so the next thing was build authority. And I always think of that when I hear build authority. All I can think of is like the elementary school kid on the playground. Who's the big one? Who's going to give me the authority and whatnot? And in the internet world, it's really not that different.
Well, if you got to take a step and understand like who your ISP is, where are they spending time online, and that's where you can start thinking about how do you build authority. So you just take the most common example. A lot of B2B companies think their ICP spends time on LinkedIn. That's not always true, but let's use that as an example here. People buy from people they trust. And whether it's, from reading your content on LinkedIn or a podcast like you're doing, Aaron, like you get it. People need to start learning from you early. So then you can start talking to them about some of the problems that they know they have. So when you offer the solution, it's a no-brainer. I need to talk to Aaron. And where we kind of lose a little bit of touch in marketing, a lot of founders at this point just want to talk to like this 3% that are actually in market for their service. And we know that if 97% of your potential buyers aren't ready for you, and you're talking to 3%, it's such a crowded field. Where the really blue ocean opportunity is this 97% that are looking to learn. They need help building their business or different parts of their business. And if they're starting to trust you and you're kind of building this authority within that segment, that being able to kind of take them to that next step is just a no-brainer.
It is. And in the true businesses that are going to work out well are the people that want to educate anyway. It really is. The people that are out there just to make the buck, they don't see the long game, the big picture, and they're going to fizzle out anyway. All the people that I see that have generational businesses and are doing very good, they want to educate. They want to help out. They want to say, hey, let me give you the knowledge so you can be a smart shopper when it comes to that time. And I always see that, and it just does better. I always find myself in better rooms and better company when you look at that. I mean, that's kind of the whole reason this podcast exists.
Yeah, you're ahead of the game, and you obviously get it. And I'm glad we're having this conversation. But most B2B companies, they're just not there yet. They're kind of taking this a little bit old school approach. They think people are going to find them when they're ready. But everyone's spending their whole day online, whether it's on LinkedIn or Instagram or talking to people on Slack. They're trying to improve their companies, and there's ways that we can start talking to them early. And we know these B2B sales, you're not selling a tchotchke on Shopify here. You're really, it's 3, 4, 6, 10, 12 months. You can't really just keep selling your product for 12 months. That's pretty annoying. People they want to keep hearing from you. They're actually going to start trusting you, and it just makes that sale a little bit longer or a little bit easier when it's right, when they're ready. And when we know B2B buyers say they're going to do 90% of that journey themselves, and they're going to talk to you when they're ready. So playing that long game, it feels a little, it's hard to kind of adjust, especially when you're used to just, your referral coming in and saying like, I'm ready to talk to you today. So you need to play quarters down the line, and being able to measure that outcome over course of quarter over quarter, year over year, things start to compound, and that's where the real money is.
Just want to take a moment to talk about Square Coil here. Square Coil has been powering the signage industry since 2011, and we're only growing bigger and better and stronger every single day. Some of the latest updates have just made my life a lot easier. I'm sure it's going to make your life a lot easier. So if you haven't checked us out, go ahead and get on our website, squarecoil.com. Take a look. And if you have an outdated key, an old software program that's going to be closing its doors this year, definitely take a look at us because we can make that transition real simple for you. Take a look at squarecoil.com.
I do want to hop into the main guts on this one because I love your heads out. You obviously understand the market very well. And so you said in the beginning, we said, hey, let's test something. Let's go through the trials. And I put my neck through the guillotine noose here and I said, all right, use me for an example. So we used Square Coil and we went to the website. And anybody watching this show right now, you can get on squarecoil.com, see our website, kind of see what it looks like to get a feel for it. In fact, we'll throw it up right now. That's pretty much what it looks for. We're kind of, scrolling through here. There's the feel of what Square Coil looks like there. So what grade, after I went through your system, what grade did you give me?
So we have a hard grading system. The things that modern B2B buying.
Don't butter me up. What'd you give me?
And we gave you a D. And
a D.
Not for a lack of,
for the OCD individual over here, I said, how in the hell did I get a D on Olive Grading System when I was very proud of my website? So I'm going to tell you this, Bill. I went through the letter that you gave me. We're going to go through it together right now, but I got to tell everybody listening here, those are such good ideas. Like when I went through, I said, okay, now I understand the grade because you had such good ideas coming through. I looked at them like, oh, I need to change my website ASAP because these are such genius ideas. So I wanted to put that preface out there that I was super butthurt that I got a D. And then when I saw what had happened, I went, oh, I get it now. I get it. It's all right. Now I got the stage, Bill. You got the mic, my friend.
Well, let me start off. There's so much that modern B2B messaging has really changed. We don't think of when an executive or a team is buying today, they're not really looking at features or kind of like the pain points. They don't want to buy that. They're buying outcomes. They want a transformation in their company. They're looking at leaders in the industry and they're like, how do I operate like a leader? And it's typically not, they're not like searching through every pain point and like knowing you have the solution. They need the outcome that they want. These are busy people. They typically have multiple hats. So we rely on a framework that basically operates on 3 different levels. And, it's called a revenue messaging framework. And we think about on a role level, like how do individual executives see their specific job changing? And then how do entire departments, how must they transform to stay competitive? So then when you're thinking about the whole industry is evolving, you need to create some urgency to act now. Because, like I said, they're buying these transformations. And the way that we want to articulate this is like helping take that journey from the old way to a new way, like an existing state to a desired state at every level of your buyer's organization. So, you're really positioning yourself as like the essential for future success. And when we tie that back to that referral dependency, there's really just like, how do you really break through from that referral dependency? Is like you need to build that authority and the demand there, and it starts with your messaging. So we can take a quick run through your website, and I have put a little mock-up on how I think that the few things that we can do, small changes that can really take this to the next level.
Yeah, no, go for it. Go ahead and share the screen. For you guys listening on the radio, my apologies. We'll try and be as vocal as we can so you can follow along, but this is definitely one of the few that's a very much of a YouTube watch on this one. Let's go ahead and share. Yep, so that's the old site.
So right now, the problem that I see is that, you're saying basically the number one ERP system. And that's really, being number one is like, seems like a little out of place because there's probably not many ERPs for sign owners here that I know of. So nope, you're where I would think about is like what only is a lot more powerful because it's defensible, it's verifiable, it's explains why you're different, and it's not just like a generic comparison. You're really creating yourself a category of one, and you're kind of burying some of the proof points here, 40% of increase in revenue. I mean, any sign shop owner reading that just seems like their eyes are going to light up. You have other things you're talking about around on the website. You're talking about 13 years in the industry. Another main piece here is you, Aaron. Like you had the story. You ran the sign shops. You understand exactly what these owners are looking for and the outcomes that they need. So you want to buy from someone that gets you. There's so many generic products and services out there. You want to talk to someone who gets you, and that's another place that you really stand out. Is you talk about U.S. Support in the U.S. Do you want to talk to someone? If you're a U.S. company, you want to talk to someone on U.S. hours that understands your business. So you have all the proof points here, and we're just right now they're buried. And you're focused more on the number one ERP system. So I would really kind of think about building, built by shop owners for sign shop owners. From that, like every project, talking about from a quote to installation, nothing falls through. You get it. Every project needs to be tracked. Every deadline is visible. And then I would lead with that third pillar is like how to support that actually understands your business. So really it's not. I keep going back to this. It's a little hard to go through this. We're talking to your listeners about the host that they're listening to about your website, but
that's all right. Somebody's got to be the guinea pig here. I'm all for it.
Yeah. So when we there's a lot we can just basically move some things on the website, and as we're going through, I talked about the transformation here. So we need to talk about what's at stake. And I would say the sign industry is experiencing a generational transformation. Shops that thrived for decades on relationships and reputation now compete against digitally enabled competitors who quote hours, track every project in real time, and protect margins through systemic cost accounting. As we're thinking through that, you can really start putting for your audience. You can start telling what's at stake. Missed deadlines, eroding those customer relationships, margin leakage from inaccurate estimates, key person dependency. Just like with our referral dependency, everything's in the owner's head, and so you're losing bids to more organized competitors, and then you have that burnout from constant firefighting. So how I would shape this into our new position at Square Coil would be the only ERP designed exclusively for sign shops by people who actually ran sign shops. Generic ERPs require you to adapt your business to their software, and Square Coil was built to fit how sign shops actually work. So now you're kind of taking them through this narrative that they understand. What was kind of your first thoughts through that analysis? I'm going to throw it back to you.
It was spot on, and it's kind of funny because I had a website 2 years ago that was actually a lot more like what you're talking about now. And I brought a marketing guy on, and he was like, this is just going to feel better. It's got a better, at the time it was new, it was fresh. So I was like, let's move with it. And our sales and incoming from the website just kind of plateaued. It was kind of the same. It didn't really change anything. And so I didn't really see it as a bad thing or a hic. I was just like, this is my line. This is how much comes through. And then in the last couple of months, I've really started diving in it, looking at the GA4, the Google Analytics. And I went, this is not working as well as I thought. So it was really funny that, you and I synced up here in the last couple of weeks. And I was like, man, I got to have you on the show because this is what I'm living with right now. This is what I'm dealing with. And so it was just great timing to have you come on. I can't knock any of that stuff. Everything that you said is pretty spot on to what we're trying to do. And it is. I've told the story a whole bunch of times. I built SquareQuo because there was nothing out there that fit the bill, and I ran out of money. And so I monetized it to try and keep my little dream going just for my own sign company. Had no clue it was going to take off. Hell, I always claimed that I was MySpace. Here today, gone tomorrow. And instead, we got over 5,000 users in 5 different countries running the software, and we're growing like a weed. And it's a beautiful thing, but it's just so funny that you forget. And so as we're building this software on the back end and making it more robust and awesome and great, I never turn my head and say, "Oh, what's going on with the marketing side? What's going on over here?" And so now that I'm putting my head back down on the marketing side, I'm like, "Oh crap, we got a lot of work to do."
Like you've able to take some other pieces of, I think what I would say is great marketing. And if you're, the path forward and going back to that referral dependency, you've really been able to build that content foundation. You've created that founder-led content that helps build trust where people are spending time. They're not spending every day looking at squarecoil.com. So you've kind of taken it, 75% of the way there. And now as more, there may be more competitors entering the market, and there's just so much more competition for attention, and especially where just content creation has become more just easy to do, and it's turning into a lot of AI slop where everything starts looking the same. I think we're going to just start. A lot of buyers today are just going to start glazing over when they start seeing every website kind of saying the same things to them. So when you can start talking to their real aspirations and the outcomes that they want, rather than just listening like a lot of the features that they may need, or, hey, I have a problem with inventory management today. Well, we do this. Like a lot of there's just gonna be so much competition. And then not even talking about how a lot of people are gonna use AI to create a lot of these things for themselves. Like why like with SquareCoil, you really have an opportunity to say we get it, we built it for you, we understand the outcomes you need, and we understand everything you need to really be successful. So it's not it's not I don't think it's it's not the only thing that matters. It's just kind of it becomes that bedrock. So where I would see marketing going, and through all of your content, through all of your ads, you're starting to talk like this, and now when their attention is on LinkedIn or on a different platform or on TV, they're seeing a lot of the same type of messaging. And now you can come in and just kind of change the way that they start thinking. And it's easy for you to start building that trust again for them to come to you. And ultimately, get that thousands, turn to tens of thousands.
It does. And just those little tweak markings, because one of the things that you said on there, it says instead of number one, say only. And for me, if I was reading that, if I was on Instagram or whatever and scrolling through and I see that, I'd say only. What do you got? If I saw number one, I'm like, yeah, so was everybody else. So right off the bat, I resonated with what you were saying, of where that little word change would resonate better with me as a reader. And I'm sure it does a lot of my other potential clients as well.
Yeah, and the other piece I want to add here is for your listeners, it's understanding how your customers start talking about you. What a lot of times a lot of eye-opening things that I've seen is if you interview a customer and you think you're one thing, or you've done something, when you talk to your customer, it could be they found a whole different way of explaining the way you think you are, the way of the outcomes that you've given. So it's really about testing, understanding your customers, and just having regular processes to not just sell them, but actually learn from them, talk to them, and then just continue modifying your framework here on the website. So you're always getting better, and it's never just here's my analysis, here's what I say, and then it just stays like that forever. It's a living document, it's a living website, and it's going to change. Could be quarter over quarter, year over year.
Yeah, and that's something I think a lot of people do is they put their website out there and they go, awesome, check that box, moving on with my day. And it's true, you have to keep evolving it and keep playing with it and keep pushing through. And there are times where you're going to push a marketing plan that didn't really hit the nail on the head, and we're going to have to backtrack and do something else. So it is something that a lot of people take for granted. I know I've taken it for granted for years and years. My websites are pretty static. My sign company's website was static for almost a decade. We just changed that this year. And that hurt. It hurt immensely. I will say that out loud. It hurt us quite a bit in the incoming traffic.
Hey, I just we're just doing an audit, the revenue messaging audit for a company. They haven't changed their website since 2019. So a lot's changed since then, and you're still getting they weren't super concerned because they're still getting that referral business. They're in what the market they're in. But when you're going to the website, it's clear. If you're not if you're not talking about the modern challenges and the modern what's happening now, there's the transformation that's happened in every industry in the last 6-7 years is it's clear as day. If you're not really documenting that and sharing that and showing that you understand, there's no doubt that you're losing opportunities to just kind of validate that you're the right company. Or we don't even know, how much pipeline they've lost over those last 6 years because they just were happy with where that static or steady growth.
No, it's true. It's true. Now you did a quick rendition of a new site for me. So we saw the old one. Let's bring the new one up. And this was only thrown together inside of like half hour, an hour. This was not like any professional where you took a lot of time. You just wanted to show something different here.
Right. I wanted to show like how this text could really it's just a new text a little bit and some visuals here. So one of the bigger things you can see on the new page, that the mock-up here, of course, the only ERP built exclusively for sign shops. You talk really straight to them. The generic ERPs don't understand the difference. You talk about trust signals, average revenue for increase for customers. These need to be front and center. I would also kind of recommend like having a little bit of a visual. A lot of times, especially in the ERP space, I see they're always like feels like gatekeeping on they don't want to show you what's going on. And buyers today are, they're a little hesitant they don't always want to just hop on a call with someone. You're going to hop on a call when you're hopping on a call. But most buyers, I mentioned before, 80, 90% of the way, they want to do all the research themselves. They're hopping on G2 or Clutch or Capterra. They're talking to their buddies. They're talking to other CEOs. And you typically don't want to talk to that sales guy until you're ready. So having a little bit of a visual, we also added like that, a watch video. You can either talk through it a little bit more. So there's a lot of this is kind of like the main space, as that this hero space with how can you make sure that someone understands what you do, what you're gonna bring to them.
It was really funny. One of the things you did is in your system there, you actually redid my logo. Not a bad logo. I actually like it. I'm not going to adopt it, but I actually like it.
We used just a tool to mock this up, and that's how they came across it. So we definitely want to keep the logo and the branding that you've built.
Sure.
When you keep it your website industry, or you're keeping it industry specific, you actually kind of really want to bring out this 40% revenue increase. This is just a no-brainer. Having all of your testimonials here, and then talking through the pricing. That $25 per employee is pretty aggressive. How do you kind of for you, like how do you kind of balance that accessibility with the value? Like how are you guys really going through that with typical opportunities?
It's for us, we just want to make sure that we put a fair product out there. And in SaaS worlds, it's really easy to gouge a person to have a 60-80% profit margin, and that's not what I built it for. I didn't build this to get my pockets fat. I built it to really help that owner that decided to take a risk and build his own company. So he hopefully had more time with his kids and whatnot. He could make his own hours. Little did he know, he just doubled his daily workload and everything else. And it was a horrible idea to own a company, but he's in it now. And so that's my ICP. That's the person I'm trying to help. And so we made it really aggressive to where when you saw what we offer and you see what our competitors offer, and you see that they're more expensive with less features, it's just a no-brainer. It's just, well, Jiminy Christmas, I get all of these toys. It's like seeing Lamborghini sitting out there for 10 grand and you got a Ford Fiesta for 25 grand. Which one are you going to pick? Like, it's just such a no-brainer, you wouldn't even bother. And so, we were regressive on this, but the layout's simple, it's clean, it gets the message across. Like, this is great.
Right. And we try to have you have the great aggressive pricing, and then you have, just coming back to I had to bring up we had a couple mock-ups here I put together. So I had to give you the newest version. Just having those qualitative quotes, we want to have, you have the more qualitative, we want to make sure you have the 35% faster project processing, 3 years, 0 missed deadlines. Like, this is just is gold right here. I mean, how do you these are all people I'm going to, as a sign shop owner, I know I may know some of these guys and these other companies, and like these results just speak for themselves. They build the trust and they build urgency where you can kind of, your prospects seek those specific metrics from real companies, but you don't typically hear about that. But if I hear 35% faster processing as a sign shop owner, I'm starting to envision that similar results for myself. Well, what does that mean for my bottom line? It makes like the transformations and some of these like 50% less time on admin. Like it just seems like probably unbelievable for a lot of folks that are reading this that may be getting an ERP for the first time. But these numbers, like they make this transformation seem more tangible and believable. So I love the quotes here. I would also call out, how can we kind of feature your story somewhere? Just having like a dedicated section about, you kind of mentioned briefly on the page before, but now today, if we could, I would put more. Just you're still a small shop. A lot of people are probably coming from this podcast or your content, but you have a dedicated section now that adds a little bit more credibility that none competitors that come from next year or anything, they can't replicate that. They didn't study the sign shops from the outside. You didn't study the sign shops from the outside. You ran them. You experienced all these frustrations, and then you built the solution that's actually that actually helped you. So that founder story really, in my mind, transforms you from what I would say, just another vendor to one of us. And one of the biggest things of our framework, the biggest takeaways that I try to instill is like you don't want to be known as just another vendor. Whether it's me, our team at Colony Spark or Square Coil, if you're just positioning yourself as another vendor, you're replaceable. You're fighting. You maybe you're positioning yourself against anyone else that might come after you that can beat you on price or something that anyone just feels like you're just very indispensable. So I would kind of run that partner messaging, and if you can have someone come with you as a partner, they'll stay with you longer. And how long is your typical when you sign a new sign shop owner, like how long are they staying with Square Coil?
If they are going to cancel, they cancel in the first 3 months because they didn't launch it. Once they get past 3 months, forever.
Yeah, so that's a indispensable partner. They're building their company with you. That's it's invaluable. It's for you on a business level. Now you have reliable revenue coming in. You can invest in the software and your marketing. Great content, and it's just the sky's the limit here. I would end with just adding with a little bit of like this final CTA using that transformation language. Instead of like a generic demo request, I would speak to a little bit more like their emotional journey. Not just like they're not just trying to transact with software. Like ERP is in your company. You're not just, it's not just like a Gmail. You need that chaos to control really captures it captures exactly what the sign owners want. In my mind, it's more memorable. It's very specific, and it creates that mental image of that before and after state. So, if it's start your free trial, if it's get a demo, whatever the CTA is here, kind of completes that story on the website.
I love it. And so many good points on here. And if I was a sign owner listening to this, I'd be like, man, I can't wait for you to zap my company and go through it, take a look at it. Because every sign owner that I always talk to has the same cool story. Dad was doing this, and dad was the artist, and dad was here and there, and they took it over the family business, or they fell into it for a love of, bending metal and doing cool stuff, or, maybe they got that testosterone pumping through the veins. They want to be high up on that crane truck doing the install. And after a while, body got a little old, time to start owning a company. They always have that cool story. And it's so important to have the listeners know who's behind the veil of the company name. Who's behind it's actually doing the work. So there's so many good talking points about all that. I mean, luckily you gave me the piece of paper ahead of time, but if I didn't have the paper, I'd have been jotting stuff like crazy. I already had like 3 pages of notes down just off this conversation. It was just so much good stuff.
I appreciate you saying that. And, I'm sure we'll talk more about this. That just like I said, where I would just recommend anyone listening is start thinking through this and don't make the perfect, the good, the enemy of the perfect. Like it's really like it's iterations. Like how do we kind of get it to, ultimately we want to get it to something great, but like how can we take the score from a D to a B to a B plus to an A? And it's just continuing to learn from your customers and what they're hearing from, and that feedback loop is where I would say a lot of especially our clients, like that's not really where they're focused on. They're focused on new business or growing trying to grow that pipeline, but they're not really, the last step is really where you can, help outcompete your competitor.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense. Well, this is a lot. This is a lot to take. I mean, this is something this is probably one of the few podcasts I got a feeling that people are going to be listening to twice just to get all the information out of. So good. Just such good stuff here. I'm sorry, my brain's somewhere else right now. I'm on my website looking at, all the different ways that it could have hit. And it's good. It's all beautiful stuff. So, how do people find you? Let's just start there, because I know if I were listening, I'd be calling you immediately to get the review on that. So how do we get a hold of you?
Hey, if you want an audit, any listener, just go to our website, colonyspark.com. Got a short form on there. You can request audit. I'll do it myself, send you the results, and happy to walk through each step of the way for you so you can execute yourself. Or if you need our help, we're happy to help you build that true transformation.
Yeah, that's a huge source right there, just in itself, just to have that audit and see it and see the feel of it. But there's just, like I said, there's so much there. I mean, you and me are definitely going to be talking after this podcast is over, because after seeing that website, I want it yesterday. I want all my new viewers to see it immediately. So it's good. Well, Bill, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and showing us all of this. You've definitely opened up my eyes a lot. I hate my freaking rating of a D, so we got to fix that ASAP. And I'm sure a lot of the customers are feeling the same way.
We're going to Q1's just underway. Let's make some moves, and happy to help any of your listeners. Find me on LinkedIn or come to the website, and happy to help you transform your website and messaging for 2026.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, Bill, I appreciate you and your company, Call Me Spark. You guys have been rock stars, man. I thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.